I still remember the first day she introduced Jason to me. "He's my son from my first marriage," she said with a soft smile, ruffling his hair like any mother would. He looked about 20, tall and quiet. Polite even, I didn't ask questions. Who was I to dig into a past she wasn't ready to fully unfold? After all, I loved her. I loved her enough to ignore the way Jason looked at her sometimes, not like a son. I loved her enough to dismiss how she'd tense when I came home unexpectedly and found them sitting too close on the couch. I chalked it up to paranoia, trust issues from my last relationship. We married in the spring. 6 years flew by like dust in a storm. Jason lived in the guest room, supposedly, but I'd started waking up some nights to the sound of muffled footsteps upstairs. Always around 2 a.m., always ending with a door creak. Not mine. I asked her once. She laughed. He sleepwalks sometimes. I believed her. Then last month, while fixing a leak in the ceiling, I found something. A small leather notebook wedged behind a loose floorboard in the attic above the guest room. The first page read, "Cycle missed. I think it's his again. I can't keep doing this." Every page after that was a spiral of fear. Secrets and love, not mine. The way she wrote about him. Her sweet boy, how she can't let him go. How she hates pretending to be a wife when he's just down the hall. And then, aborted again, he held my hand in the clinic. My husband called while I was still on the table. I couldn't breathe. I flipped through the rest in silence, my hands trembling as I read entry after entry, until the last one, dated just 2 weeks ago. "I think he suspects. Jason says we should leave before he finds out everything. I don't want to lose the house, but I can't lose Jason." I stood in that attic, frozen, listening to the muffled laughter downstairs, their laughter. My hands clenched the notebook. I was living with 2 strangers, one who wore my ring, and the other who wore her in the shadows. And now it was my turn to keep a secret. I climbed down from the attic like I was walking away from a grave I hadn't known was mine. My chest was heavy with betrayal, but I didn't scream, I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed to be smart, I needed to be sure. That night I didn't sleep. I lay in bed next to her, watching her breathe as if nothing in the world was wrong. She curled into me, kissed my shoulder, whispered, "I love you, baby," like she hadn't murdered the life we were supposed to build, over and over again. I stared at the ceiling for hours, her journal hidden in my coat pocket under the bed. In the morning, I called in sick. I told her I had a headache. She barely noticed. I think she was too busy texting. Probably him, her so-called son. I installed a camera in the living room, another in the hallway near his bedroom door, one more in the kitchen, angled toward the back staircase she always used when she thought I was asleep. By the second night, I had what I needed. At 2:17 a.m., she came down the hallway in her silk robe. I watched from my phone in real time as she opened Jason's door without knocking. He was already waiting, shirtless, smirking. She wrapped her arms around him and kissed him with the kind of hunger I hadn't seen from her in years. I paused the video. My hand clenched so hard I nearly cracked the screen. I wanted to storm in, rip them apart, scream until the walls bled, but I didn't. Instead, I waited until morning. I cooked breakfast like I always did. Eggs, toast, a little bacon, her favorite. Jason came downstairs first, rubbing his neck, yawning like he'd just had the best sleep of his life. She followed 10 minutes later, in that same silk robe. "Morning, babe," she said, kissing my cheek. "Morning," I replied calmly. I handed them both plates, sat across the table, and smiled like I was still the fool they thought I was. Then I placed the notebook on the table between us. Her smile died. Jason's fork dropped to his plate. "I know everything," I said quietly. Silence, the kind that echoes. Then Jason stood, fast like he was ready to run or fight. But I was ready too. "Sit down," I told him. And to my surprise, he did. Because what they didn't know yet was that I had one more secret. And it was the kind that could burn everything they loved to the ground. Jason sat. Not because he respected me, not because he feared me. He sat because I smiled when I said it. And that smile unsettled him. She reached for the notebook slowly, her fingers trembling like she was touching a loaded gun. She flipped to the last entry, then looked at me like I was the stranger. "I can explain," she whispered. "No," I said, "you can't. You've been lying for 6 years, sleeping in his bed while sharing mine, calling him your son while aborting his babies, and asking me to pray for the ones we couldn't have." Her face paled. Jason stood again. "Look, man, You what?" I snapped, locking eyes with him. "You moved into my house, slept under my roof, ate my food, smiled in my face while screwing her in the dark. Were you laughing at me when I cried over those miscarriages?" He flinched. She said nothing, Her eyes filled, but no tears fell. "You know what hurts?" I asked. "Not that you cheated, not even that you lied. What hurts is I loved you, I gave you everything. And you gave me nothing real." Jason stepped forward. "We're leaving." "I don't think so," I said, reaching under the table. I placed a flash drive on the table. "What's that?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Everything," I said. "The videos, the audio, the texts you deleted, your little clinic visits, your calls to the motel on Westridge, even the time you both laughed about how long you could keep the lie going." Jason's face twisted. "You bugged us. You made my house a crime scene. I made it a case file." Her voice cracked. "What do you want?" I leaned forward, cold and steady. "I want you both gone, but not before you sign a confession. I want the truth on record. I want the world to know exactly what you are." Jason laughed nervously. "You think you can blackmail us?" "No," I said, standing now. "I don't need to blackmail you, because I already sent copies to 3 people, and one of them's my lawyer." Her breath hitched. "You wouldn't." "I would," I said, "and I did." She looked down at the flash drive, then back at me, her face cracking into a quiet, bitter defeat. Jason muttered something under his breath, then turned to her. "You said we were safe." She didn't answer. He backed away from the table. That's when I pulled out the last card. "You're not just cheaters," I said. "You're frauds, see. You filed taxes together as mother and son. You shared benefits, medical claims, government funds." Her eyes widened. Jason froze. That hit harder than any punch. "I give you 24 hours, I said, walking out of the kitchen, "to get your things and disappear." I paused at the door and turned back one last time. "If you don't, the world won't just know what you did. It'll watch you get dragged away for it." Jason stormed out first, his fists clenched, but his face pale. He didn't say a word. She stayed seated, staring at the flash drive like it might bite her. When I came back downstairs an hour later, she was still there, same chair, same robe, same lies unraveling behind her eyes. "Where did I lose you?" I asked quietly. She looked up, her voice cracked like thin ice. "You never lost me. I just never belonged to you in the first place." "Honest, finally." I nodded, "Then leave with that truth." She stood slow and shaky. "You really sent it to a lawyer?" "Yes." "To who else?" "My brother," I said, "and my boss. Just in case you got creative." Her lips curled bitterly. "You always were too damn trusting, and you were always too damn greedy." She walked past me without another word. I didn't follow, I didn't need to. By the next afternoon, the house was silent. Jason's room empty, her closet bare. Only the smell of her perfume lingered in the hallway, mixed with the stale scent of betrayal. But the story wasn't over, not yet. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived. No return address, no handwriting I recognized. Inside was a photograph, blurry, taken from far away, but it was unmistakably her. In a small town, I once mentioned to her during a road trip. She was standing beside Jason, holding hands. The back of the photo had a short message. "We started over, don't follow. We'll start again if we have to." I stared at it for a long time, and then I turned the photo over again and noticed the date scribbled faintly in the bottom corner. It was 2 days before she left my house, 2 days before I confronted her, which meant she knew she was leaving. They planned it, and everything she said, every tear she dropped, was theater. That night I went back to the attic, not to cry, not to break, but to open the second notebook she didn't know I found. The one Jason wrote. The second notebook was hidden deeper in the attic, tucked behind an old box of winter clothes she'd told me to throw out years ago. I'd almost missed it. It was smaller than hers, just a simple black journal. No name, no label. But the first line hit me like a punch to the ribs. She told me I'd never have to be him again. I sat on the attic floor, the dim bulb overhead casting shadows that danced like ghosts on the wooden beams. And I read, page after page. "He thinks I'm her son. I still can't believe it worked. Sometimes I think she actually forgets I'm not. She whispers that she wishes he would just die in his sleep." My fingers went numb. Jason hadn't just lied. He liked it. He liked playing this twisted role, hiding in plain sight while stealing everything I built. He liked the game, the danger, the deception. He thrived in it. But it got darker. She said the second abortion nearly killed her, but she'd rather die than have his child. I gagged, my chest burned. She kissed me right after telling him she was going to therapy, told me I was the only real thing in her life. There were dozens of entries like that, until the last one. It was dated the morning before I found her notebook. "He's getting close. She's acting nervous. I told her we have to go soon, or I'll make sure he does more than just find out. If she can't destroy him, I will." I sat there holding the notebook, my hands shaking, not from rage this time, but realization. Jason hadn't just been her lover. He was the puppet master, and she was tangled in his strings, too scared or too lost to cut herself free. Suddenly, a ping from my phone pulled me out of the fog. An email from an anonymous sender. No subject, no message, just a video attachment. I hesitated, then pressed play. The screen lit up. Grainy security footage from what looked like a storage facility. There she was, alone, standing in front of a locked unit. She looked around nervously, then punched in a code. The door slid open slowly, and what I saw inside was not what I expected. Not clothes, not bags, but boxes, stacks of them, marked with my name. Receipts, legal documents, bank statements, even photos of me at work, at the gym, at my mother's funeral. Files, timelines, notes. She had been watching me, tracking me, for years, and in the corner of the frame, a shadow moved. Not Jason, someone else, someone I'd never seen before. Tall still, wearing a black hoodie, watching her, and then he turned to face the camera, and smiled, a smile I'll never forget, because it looked just like mine. I froze, that smile. My smile mocked me from the grainy footage like a ghost wearing my face. But it wasn't me, and that's what terrified me most. I replayed the video again, trying to make sense of it. Who was he? Why did he look like me? Why was she meeting him? My mind spiraled twin, clone, relative, conspiracy. None of it made sense, until I looked closer, pausing the frame when he tilted his head. There, just under his chin, barely visible beneath the hoodie, a scar. Small, curved like a hook. The same scar I had from falling off my bike at 10. But I never had a twin, unless they made one. The video ended, and with it, my certainty about everything I thought was real. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark. Notebook in one hand, flash drive in the other. Video still burned into my brain. Everything was a lie. My marriage, my home, my very identity. But the truth was somewhere inside that storage unit. With her, with him. So I made a decision. No more waiting. No more watching. The next morning I packed a bag, printed the still image of the man with my face, and drove 5 hours to the location the email metadata traced back to. The facility was tucked behind a highway, quiet, isolated, the kind of place where people stored things they never wanted found. I stood in front of Unit 117, the number etched into the metal like a warning. Then I opened it, and inside I found something I never expected. My name, on dozens of ID cards, passports, credit accounts, medical records showing I had died 3 years ago in a car accident, one that never happened. A staged death, a new identity, crafted without me ever knowing. They hadn't just lied to me, they replaced me. I left that unit changed, not broken, not angry, just reborn. They had taken 6 years of my life, but now I knew who I was, and I knew what they'd done. So I disappeared, started over, let the world think I vanished like smoke, because some revenge is loud. But the best kind is quiet, planned, precise, and when I come back, Jason and my wife will finally learn. You can't fake a man's life and not expect him to return for it. And this time, I won't knock.